Mr. President.
Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are we in a quorum, Mr. President?
We're not.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise today in defense of one of the most sacred pillars of our democracy, the freedom of speech. Last Saturday, President Donald Trump declared on social media that comedian Seth Meyers' jokes about him were, quote, 100% anti-Trump, which is probably illegal. That's right, illegal. The president thinks it's probably illegal to make jokes about him on television. That what Seth Meyers was doing is illegal. No more jokes about the president. Let me be clear. In America, criticizing the president is not a crime. It is a constitutional right. It is a democratic duty. It is essential for a free society. The founders enshrined this principle in the very first words of the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment guarantees that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the press. That protection is not conditional. It's not conditional upon whether or not Donald Trump likes that constitutional protection or not. It is not limited to Americans who praise those in power. It also extends to those who are critical of those who are in power, including the president and including all of the members of the United States Senate, because we have to accept that as part of our job, that people can criticize us. And this right belongs equally to everyone, from your family arguing about politics at Thanksgiving dinner to protesters and late-night comics making fun of the president. Donald Trump seems to have somehow missed this part of the Constitution. He thinks that the First Amendment has a hidden clause that prohibits criticism of him. This Trump exception flips the First Amendment on its head. Rather than protecting the public's right to speak, it protects Trump's right to be free from criticism. That's how kings think. That's not how elected officials in the United States are allowed to think. That they are infallible, that no one can ever criticize them. So that might sound crazy. Could Donald Trump really think criticizing the president is illegal? So just look at his record. Law firms, universities, protesters, journalists, all have faced this administration's wrath for their speech. The message is clear. If you dare to dissent, you have a target on your back. Consider President Trump's repeated attacks on broadcasters. Over and over again, he has urged the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission to revoke broadcasters' licenses for their speech. His allies, including Chairman Brendan Carr, have echoed those threats, even warning ABC and Disney that the FCC could, quote, do this the easy way or the hard way, over the political commentary of late-night host Jimmy Kimmel. Those are not jokes. These are threats. And when government officials use the power of their office to intimidate or silence speech, they assault the very fabric of our democracy. The resolution I bring forward today is simple. It is straightforward. It condemns any suggestion by President Trump or his administration that criticism of him is illegal. It reaffirms that the First Amendment protects the right to speak truth to power, including and especially to the most powerful person in our country. And it urges all Trump administration officials to refrain from using the machinery of government to punish or suppress dissent. This is not about partisanship. It is about principle. Presidents come, presidents go. But the First Amendment must endure. If we allow any president to wield government authority as a cudgel against speech, then no citizen's voice is safe in our nation. Not yours, not mine, not the press, not the public's. No one is safe. So I urge my colleagues to join me in sending a clear and bipartisan message. In the United States of America, it is not illegal to criticize the President of the United States. It is our constitutional right to be able to criticize the President. We have to give our support to our government, to our nation, 100% of our time. But we only have to support elected officials led by the President when they are right. That is what our country is all about. That's why we have a First Amendment. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of Senate Resolution 486 submitted earlier today, and further that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Mr. President,
Senator from Florida.
reserving the right to object. Mr. President, this is an interesting conversation, but Democrats have had 37 days to stop the most important issue that this Senate should be focused on right now, and that's this shutdown. But they clearly rather spend their time playing politics and attacking the president instead of doing what's best for the American public. Democrats have caused the longest government shutdown in our nation's history. For one reason, they hate our president. They hate him. They don't care that their actions are stopping our troops, Capitol Police, federal law enforcement, air traffic controllers from getting their paychecks. They don't care that they're causing chaos and delays at our airports, or that 42 million people rely on SNAP benefits who can't put food on the table. Now, I think about growing up. I was blessed, had a wonderful mom, but we lived in public housing. I don't know my dad. She really struggled to put food on the table. In my state of Florida and all across the country, we have people worried about putting food on the table right now. Little kids are worried about getting a dinner tonight. And it's because the Democrats have decided to shut down our government. So I represent the people of Florida and Americans across this country who are sick and tired of these political games. What we ought to be doing is feed our families, pay the people that are working their tail off, and open our government. Therefore, I object.
Mr. President.
Objection is heard. Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it is telling that the Republicans have objected with an unrelated bill. This is a classic Republican move. They're scared of supporting anything critical of Donald Trump, but they don't want to defend his actions at the same time. So they object and pivot to an unrelated issue. But don't be fooled. Senate Republicans just blocked a resolution stating that it's not illegal to criticize President Trump. I'm genuinely shocked that we can't agree that the First Amendment protects our right to criticize the president. This is, unfortunately, an era where Donald Trump wants to be king, and too many in the Republican Party are allowing him to believe that that is possible in a democracy with a Constitution and a First Amendment that guarantees the right of free speech and the right of freedom of the press. So with that, Mr. President, I yield back.
Mr. President.
Senator from Florida.
And I'm shocked that my colleague doesn't want to worry about the people, the 42 million people that are not getting SNAP benefits, the Capitol Police that are protecting us that aren't getting paid. These people have mortgages and they ought to get paid. So, Mr. President, I rise today with my bipartisan and common sense No Budget, No Pay Act. It's a simple proposal that says if members of Congress can't complete one of our basic jobs of funding the government, we shouldn't get paid. This shouldn't even be necessary. We should just do our jobs. But as we sit here over a month into the Democrat shutdown, it's clear we need something to hold Congress accountable. Every year we're tasked with putting together a budget with the expectation that it is on time and fits the needs of the American people. The American people elected us to come together. Look at what we're collecting in revenues and put together and pass 12 appropriation bills that use those dollars effectively. I was governor of Florida. Every year we pass a budget and we balance the budget, and we did it on time. The last time Congress passed all 12 appropriation bills on time was, what's your guess? 3 decades ago. Congress has failed time and time again to do its most basic job. I came to the Senate to fix this. I ran on a plan to make Washington work better for families, which included my No Budget, No Pay Act. And I've been fighting to get this passed since I got here in 2019, and I've been met with resistance from many of my colleagues since I got up here. But unfortunately, Democrats have thrived in the dysfunction and have fought endlessly to keep the status quo. They passed massive spending bills after massive spending bill, which has caused massive inflation in this country. They've raised taxes and expanded government. We have now have, Mr. President, how much debt do you think we have now? $38 trillion. We're running $2 trillion a year deficits. Now they're using the same dysfunction to shut down our government. They're prioritizing a liberal wish list of the needs of the American people. And they're more than happy, it seems, to deprive federal workers, TSA, FAA, and law enforcement of their paychecks, while members of Congress still get their own paychecks. Democrats are happy to stop 40 million people from getting their SNAP benefits. I just can't imagine, the little kids worried about where the meals are going to come tonight. These Democrats voting to shut down government are still getting paid. We should not get paid if we don't do our job. There's a problem with Washington. Any working American will tell you that if you don't do your job, you simply fail one of our basic duties of funding the government on time and still get a paycheck, even when others don't. Senate Democrats have now voted against funding the government 14 times in the last 5 weeks. They voted time and time again to continue the longest shutdown in our nation's history and stopping people from getting paid. But they're still getting paid. Democrats shouldn't be shutting down the government and risking others' paychecks without being in the same boat. I ask every one of my colleagues to support passage of my No Budget, No Pay to tell every member, do your job, fund the government, or do what other people end up doing, forego your taxpayer-funded salary. I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs be discharged from further consideration of S-88 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. I further ask that the bill be considered, read a third time and passed, that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, I reserve the right to object.
Senator from Massachusetts.
And I agree with my colleague, for sure, that during a government shutdown, lawmakers should not be paid. And that's why I'm having my pay deferred during this period. But the real answer to this shutdown isn't to withhold pay from lawmakers. It's for Republicans to stop holding the health care of Americans hostage for millions of Americans, including 337,000 people in my home state. It's for the House Republicans to return here to Washington. They're in a political witness protection program right now, back in their home states. They should come here and negotiate on these issues. We're seeing the consequences of this Republican shutdown every day: reduced SNAP benefits, canceled flights, rising health care costs. So enough already. Let's sit down. We can open the government and protect the health care of all Americans with one vote on the floor. So my Republican colleagues, they're kind of twisting themselves into knots, trying to use the shutdown to block my free speech resolution. That is ridiculous. We should have the vote on free speech. And because of that, Mr. President, I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President,
Senator from Florida.
I want to commend my colleague for deferring his paycheck. I think it's the right thing to do. If he's willing to defer his paycheck, why wouldn't he allow my bill to pass that all of us should defer our paychecks until government gets open again? The right thing to do is open the government and figure out how do we improve our healthcare system. Our healthcare system is out of control. The costs are out of control. Obamacare has completely failed us. Remember when Obamacare was passed? President Biden said, oh, you won't lose your doctor. Biggest lie of the year. Oh, gosh, you're not going to lose your plan. You completely lost your plan. Oh, you're going to save $2,500 a family. No, your costs have skyrocketed. Your co-payments are up. Your deductibles are up. Your premiums have skyrocketed. And so What we've got to do is we need to sit down in a bipartisan manner and say, how do we actually fix the cost of health care? You don't do it by shutting down government and making sure our military doesn't get paid, our TSA doesn't get paid, our FAA doesn't get paid, our Capitol Police doesn't get paid, all of our federal workers don't get paid, and we prevent 42 million people from getting food stamps benefits. If we want to fix health care, which we should do on a bipartisan matter, we should sit down and do that once we open the federal government. So I'm disappointed that my colleague, I commend him for deferring his paycheck. It's the right thing to do, but we should do that for every member of Congress until we open our government. Thank you, Mr. President.